I've received Alexander's MASAMI 97 prototype replica car. Yep, that's right, folks. Check this beauty out. Now, well, so how did this thing end up here at True Vintage RC? Well, apparently, a gentleman in Sydney by the name of Alexander had placed an order and purchased this MASAMI prototype 97 model MX4, which was the IFMA winning car back then. He bought this replica from Ruben over at Rubrix in the USA. And I don't know how, but it was decided that maybe they should send it on to me and I could do a video of it to share this with the viewing audience and show you all what is going on over at Rubrix in the USA. So this is one of his gems that have come out of that stable, and wow, it's just a real honor and a pleasure to have received this and for me to have a really good look over it and to share with the viewing audience and all the enthusiasts out there something that Ruben's been working very hard on, and that is this car right here. So I'm told by Ruben that this has been his most faithful recreation of MASAMI's 97 prototype car. So this wasn't MASAMI's car, but it was designed to replicate right down to the paint scheme, the decals, and everything. All the small details that went into building this car was to replicate the car that MASAMI had back in 97, and it's an absolute gem, I can tell you. I'm just blown away by how cool it is that Ruben is out there and people like Ruben making timepieces like this for us vintage RC enthusiasts. So yeah, like when you look at this car, I can tell about all the components. They were bespoke to this prototype that didn't come out from YOKOMO. And let's get the body off, shall we, and have a look at what's going on here. So I have myself a couple of YOKOMO MX4s, so the standard release that came out from YOKOMO, and I can tell all the differences that have been have gone into making up the Rubrix prototype car, and there are many differences. And I had recently picked up a YOKOMO MX4 lot, and it was a bit of a learning curve for me because I've never owned an MX4 before, and for such a long time I wasn't really even that much of an enthusiast of the MX4 because it was just such a departure from the YZ10 line that I struggled to appreciate what it was in that period of time. But back in late, I think it was November last year, my friend Christopher from New Zealand came over to Australia with his couple of fellow New Zealanders, and he bought his YOKOMO release MX4 to the Vintage Festival at Castle Hill, and he put it around the track, and the thing looked amazing. I absolutely loved it. We were sitting in the same pit space, and I'll include some photos in this video of his car. I think it was the only time I decided to take any photos of cars at that event because I was filming at the event. I had the drone out. I was pretty busy with all that sort of stuff, but it was the only car I actually took a photo of. And as soon as I saw it, I thought, wow, that is so cool. I really got to get one. And so a friend of mine in the USA, he had a bunch of bits and bobs sitting around, and I made a purchase, and they arrived, and I got busy working on and cleaning up a couple of cars and all the parts. And now, because I've had that experience, I'm able to look at this car from Ruben, and I can see just how much went into recreating MASAMI's prototype car. And wow, it just blows my mind. The quality is all there. it's, you know, many bespoke parts that didn't come from YOKOMO in any release, and that would include like the front bulkhead here. And the reason why I'm even familiar with any of these things is because when I got my lot from MX4 lot from my friend in the USA, I still don't know whose car it was, but it was one of those cars, and a lot of parts in there were prototype parts from one of those 50 Masaki's cars that he'd built back then. And the only thing that was really missing was this lower chassis plate. So the fundamental difference between the prototype car and the YOKOMO release was this carbon chassis plate here, which had a 10-degree kick up in the front end here molded in, whereas the YOKOMO release had a plastic front bulkhead and a plastic rear bulkhead, you know, and it was much more in line with what you know, kits are. They, you know, they bulkheads get bolted to chassis and parts get screwed to them, whatever, whereas this car was very bespoke by the fact that, you know, like they were hand machined aluminium two-piece front bulkhead here, which carried the diff, but also carried the lower hinge pins for the lower suspension arms. And as with the rear as well, it had some Delrin components that were hand machined, and they carried the lay shaft for the spur gear and also the ball diff in the rear. You'll see this Lexan gear or Lexan belt cover that goes over the rear, and you know, I'm fortunate to have quite an extensive YOKOMO buggy collection, and I have some MR4 BX cars, and I can see some hallmarks that sort of went from this car over into the MX4 by, you know, like this rear Lexan cover here, and with everything that that is YOKOMO, it's, well, in fact, all manufacturers, everything is an evolution. They all are constantly evolving and improving and making these cars better and better for racetracks. And the IFMA events are the pinnacle of that, because when a team goes to IFMA, you know, they obviously want to get the winning place, and a winning place means big things to these companies, because then it's bragging rights about how their product wins races, and you know, so everything goes on the line. And so back in '97, when the IFMA was coming up, Masaki had been covertly working on this MX4 project. So this prototype here is a representation of what Masaki designed and handcrafted for MASAMI to have, which he then went on to win the '97 IFMA in four-wheel drive with a car exactly like this. And you know, back then the YZ10 was still doing the rounds. So we had the 95 WCS back in the '95 IFMA, and then they had the '97, and they call that the WCS, and I don't know why they do, but the '97 WCS was driven by Masami. From what I'm told, is he was driven by Masami in the world's warm-up. So by the time it got to the actual IFMA titles, he was wheeling this car here. And yeah, so I have been speaking to Ruben for some time, and we've discussed some things back and forward about our own history and passion for the hobby. And you know, he even wrote me an email in regards to how he got into it, and I could really identify with Ruben in the way that, you know, when I was just a young teen also, you know, I read his email, and I was almost like I shared so many things that were going on with him in his younger years. And, you know, like we each would pull apart things and want to know how they work, you know, and we were captivated by the mechanics and the electronics and, you know, how these things all went together. And if you go back to, you know, those times, especially for me, around 85, 86, 87, you know, RC was like a mystery. The fact that you could take an RC car and drive it without a cord attached to it, you know, remotely or radio controlled, it was a new thing for me, and I'm sure it was for a lot of other people too. But anyway, so So in regards to this car, obviously this is not mine. A gentleman by the name of Alexander in Sydney, he purchased this, so he commissioned Ruben to building this car, and he wanted something that was a true replica of what MASAMI raced at 97, and I'm told this is Ruben's best and closest example to that car. So I don't know Alexander, or maybe I do. By name I don't, but maybe I've crossed paths with him somewhere. And but it was very nice of him to take Ruben's word and to trust in me that this car could come to me and it could be shared on the channel for the viewing audience. And of course, I don't mind at all helping out Ruben. I know what he's got into this project, and I've jumped on Ruben's website where he sells, you know, complete cars, the parts, the components, and he's teamed up with Fan RC, and they're doing some really cool things there. So, you know, I'd like to help and support Ruben, and I guess this is my small way of returning, you know, the favour for what he gives to the community. So, anyway, so this is the YOKOMO MX4 prototype. I have a couple behind me which are my own cars. Now, I haven't had the experience racing them yet, but I'm going to. It's just I recently got them built, and it's nice to make that comparison. So yeah, Ruben's really busy with having many parts remade, and he's still ongoing with that process now. So he's told me that I could tell the audience that he's also going to be making the molded A-arms, so the lower suspension arms. They're not 3D printed. Everything is either machined aluminium, you know, machined carbon fiber, or you know, molded plastic components. So yeah, he's got lots of great things going on in that regard. And yeah, so nothing's 3D printed, it's all injection molded, and he's working with John at JC Racing with his MX4 wheels, and I'm told these are actually JC Racing MX4 wheels. So yeah, again, another guy out there who's helping out the RC community, and what a great thing that is. So how about we have a look at the standard YOKOMO version, MX4, and make a comparison to Ruben's prototype MX4. So here on my left here, I have my YOKOMO MX4, and you can see that there are some differences. Now, I've gone with a solid top deck for mine, whereas the prototype is still using this little shock absorber on the top plate here, which was designed for tuning abilities. Now, I have opted to not go with that just because I don't know enough about tuning the thing, and a solid top deck for me just means less chance of the belt skipping and what have you. But I'm told those who know about them are able to tune them with this. But that is the one of the things that stand out initially. But this is not. This car also came with the same system here, but I don't have it on the car to make that comparison. But you'll notice in the rear here, on the rear of the standard car, everything's molded, like a molded top cover and molded components to hold the diff, whereas Ruben's here has a recreation of Masaki's design, which is the Delrin components that actually hold the spur gear and the ball diff on the rear. And also in the front here, as mentioned before, there's some aluminium components that carry the front ball diff and the hinge pin, whereas the YOKOMO version was just, you know, an injection molded plastic, you know, pumped out cookie cutter type thing, where it seemed that, you know, it was a more cost-effective way of achieving the same kind of thing here. But yeah, there are so many fundamental differences here between the original YOKOMO version and the prototype car, and Ruben's done a very good and faithful job of recreating that. So yeah, so there, these are the MX4s, and what can I say? Fantastic cars. I'm sure Alexander is going to be very impressed when he receives his car, and I hope to see him down the track at some point and maybe he's going to wheel this car. I don't know. But we'll just have to wait and see. Is that whilst Ruben does make the prototype version of the MX4, he's also got the RX4 Evo, and it's an evolution of the prototype car, and he's beefed up some things like the shock towers, the chassis, the top plate, and some other components there to make the car even more reliable. So out there in the neo vintage racing scene, you can take cars like this out there and you can really load them up with some power and get them to perform really well. So by all means, guys, jump onto Ruben's website and have a look at the items that he has up there on offer for the vintage RC community, and you'll be blown away by what he's done and how far he's gone with these things, and what he's making available to all of us should we want to be a part of what he's doing. So yeah, to Ruben and Alexander, thank you very much for trusting in me, and I appreciate all the work that has gone into this car, and mate, it's a true credit to your passion, your drive, and your ability. And I know that Keith over in RC Icons, he's also done a video of a car that was sent to him. And so yeah, well, hey, thank you very much, guys. And you know what? Get out there and enjoy these cars out in the dirt and have some fun with them. And hopefully we'll catch you on the next one. So thanks, guys. Bye now.